Hey there, Nopenguin here. I am a rogue player, and this is Let's Build. As the great rogue player Sun Tzu once said, to defeat meta decks, you must first understand them. That's why in this video series, I will take a modern deck, learn it, and give you the tools and understanding you need to defeat the meta sheep. With that said, let's build Exosister. Before we get started, I just want to say subscribe, please. I need it! Welcome to another episode of Let's Build. Today, we'll be doing something slightly different than the usual. Instead of taking one of the top decks currently in the format, I want to give you the tools to be able to use one of the best counter strategies in the upcoming format. Unfortunately, if you are not playing Sprite or Tier Elements, there is very little chance for you to top. That is, if you are not playing the counter strategy to those decks. My name is Nopenguin, and I bring you Exosister. Exosister is an Xyz based deck, but more than that, it is an anti-graveyard deck. Not unlike Gravekeepers, but unlike Gravekeepers, they are not reliant on keeping a thing on the field. No, instead, the Exosisters all have an effect that if a card is moved from the graveyard, you can then, with the one card, go into an Xyz summon of those Exosisters. And this is counted as an Xyz summon, which is huge because the Exosister Xyz have effects that can stop your opponent from special summoning cards from the graveyard for the rest of the turn, stop them from activating effects for the rest of the turn from the graveyard, or even just straight up banish cards. It has always been said that Exosister would be a deck that would be pretty much forgotten until we get to a format where graveyard effects and stopping them become the dominant strategy. And lo and behold, the two tier 0 decks we have both love the graveyard. So with that, I am going to take you through the deck and teach you how to play Exosister to defend yourself against the tier 0 threats. So to do that, let's go into the card by card. To start us off, we have Exosister Malfa or Martha. This is one of two cards that we are getting in Power of the Elements, and it does everything you want for the deck. If you control no monsters or all your monsters are Xyz monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, special summon Exosister Ellis from your deck. You can't special summon cards for the rest of the turn except Exosister, so do not use this card's effect if you expect to go into AA Zeus. But other than that, it is literally just a free Xyz summon, which is amazing. And like the other Exosisters, if a card is moved out of either graveyard, you can then go for an Xyz summon with this card by itself. One thing to note, Martha's effect triggers whether you or your opponent move the card out of the graveyard. All the other Exosisters say that your opponent has to move the card out of the graveyard. Martha does not say this. We have many ways to remove cards out of their opponent's graveyard, like DV Crow, like Metalis, like our new Trap. So unlike the other Exosisters, Martha can actually proactively activate its effect to go into the card before we let your opponent do the real play it wants to get off. Next, we have Martha's lesbian lover, Elis. Her effect states that if you control an Exosister monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you control a Stella on resolution, gain 800 life points. The fact that this plus any Exosister goes into one of your Xyz plays is really big. From here on out, all of the other Exosisters are going to have the effect that if your opponent moves a card out of either graveyard, you can go into an Xyz summon. They all have the exact same wording, exact same effect, so I will not really mention them moving forward. Next, we have Elise's other lesbian lover, Stella. Her effect states that you can special summon one Exosister from your hand, and then on resolution, if you control Elise, gain 800 life points. Then onto our two ofs, we have Exosister Irene. You can place an Exosister card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, draw a card, and if you control Sophia on resolution, you gain 800 life points. Sophia's effect is if you control another Exosister monster, you can just draw a card. And if you control Irene on resolution, gain 800 life points. Final thing to note, both Sophia and Irene's effect do not work with Pot of Prosperity, so you can't activate those the turn you use Pot. Next, we have our hand traps. We have triple Ash Blossom, triple Ghost Ogre, double DD Crow, triple Effect Veiler, and triple Infinite Permanence. These are just the hand traps that I'm playing, though one thing I do want to note, I am not main decking Dimension Shifter. I have seen so many decks that main Dimension Shifter alongside Ghost Ogre, alongside Effect Veiler, but If you don't know, these cards can't activate if Dimension Shifter is active, because they specifically need to be sent from the hand to the graveyard as the cost. Next we have Triple Pot of Prosperity. Just being able to grab Martha from deck is so important. Then we have One Called by the Grave. Remember, this is also a card that can activate Martha. And then our search spell, Triple Exosister Packs. It's a quick effect spell, but you can only activate it during the main phase, pay 800 life points, add an Exosister card from your deck except itself. Then, if you added a monster by this effect, you can special summon it if the other Exosister monster mentioned on it is in your field or graveyard. So basically, if you add Malfa and you have Ellis in your graveyard, you can special summon the Malfa, though you absolutely do not want to do that, as you want to use Malfa's effect. Also remember, this does add your trap cards, keep that in mind. And our last spell is Exosister Armament. This is a quick play spell. Pay 800 life points to target an Exosister monster you control, then special summon an Exosister Xyz monster with a different name than the cards you control by using that card as material. This is treated as an Xyz summon, but you can only activate this card during your opponent's turn, or if your opponent controls a monster special from the graveyard. Onto our traps, we have Exosister Litania. This is one of the new support cards, and oh my god, this does so much as well. If all monsters you control are Exosister, right off the bat pay 800, target a card your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. Then, you can do one of these following effects on top of that. Either go for an Xyz summon, or if you've already Xyz, you get to banish another card. Triple Infib, like I said, and Triple Exosister Vadis. This card is insane. Pay 800, choose an Exosister monster from your deck and their lesbian counterpart, special summon both of them, but they get shuffled into the deck during the end phase, but that doesn't matter. You use this if you're anticipating your opponent to use a graveyard effect, so that you can then proc those Exosisters you special summon to go into 2 Xyz monsters. One thing I do want to note here is you have to be very careful when you use this card, because if you just hit this right out of the gate, your opponent might just summon a couple of monsters and attack into your Exosisters before committing to any kind of play. And that's really the thing with Exosisters. You gotta really anticipate how your opponent's gonna be playing their game, because you want to use this just before they move something from the graveyard, but not so early that they can easily remove your monsters. It's a bit of a balancing game you have to do here, but it's very effective when working properly. Then onto the extra, we have 3 link monsters, Halka Firebrax, Selene, Access Code Talker. All of our monsters are spellcasters, so Selene targets are plentiful. Then onto our Xyz, we have 2 Exosisters Gibrine, 2 level 4s, cannot be destroyed by the activated effects of monsters special from the graveyard. If you control this monster that was special summoned this turn, quick effect, target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects. Then as a non-quick effect, you get detach a material from this card. For the rest of this turn, all Xyz monsters you control gain 800 attack. That's not the monsters you control currently, all Xyz monsters for the rest of the turn. So if you are able to use this card and then go into our Magnifica, that creates an insanely powerful turn to beat down. Next we have Asophil. Cannot be destroyed by activating effects of monsters special summoned from the graveyard. And when this card is Xyz summoned, you can activate this effect. Neither player can activate cards effects in the graveyard for the rest of the turn. Then on a non-quick effect, detach a material, target a monster your opponent controls, return it to the hand. Then we have 2 Exosister Castiel. Cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special from this graveyard. And when Xyz summoned, you can activate this effect. Neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of the turn, and detach a material, and an Exosister monster from your deck to your hand. Finally, we have the best of the rank 4s, Exosister Michaelis. Cannot be destroyed by battle by monster special from the graveyard. And on a quick effect the turn you Xyz summon this card, you can target a card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, banish it. Then as a non-quick effect, detach a material to add an Exosister spell trap from your deck to your hand. Then we have the boss monster of the deck, Exosister's Magnifica. You Xyz summon this by using 2 ranked 4 Exosister monsters. This is a 2800 attack and defense monster that can make 2 attacks during the battle phase. And again, if we use Gibrine's effect to gain 800 attack points, then this is a 3600 attack monster that can attack twice. Not on monsters, you can attack directly twice with this card. And on top of that, it has 2 quick effects. Quick effect 1, detach a material from this card, banish a card your opponent controls. Quick effect 2, When your opponent activates a card or effect, you could return one of the Exceed monsters attached to this as material to the extra deck, then special summon that monster from the extra deck, using this card to control as material. So basically, if you've used the first effect to banish a card already, and your opponent activates a card or effect, you can then, if for example MacLeod is a material, you could return MacLeod to the extra deck and then overlay it on top of Magnifica and be able to use its effect again. Though often you'll want to special summon the ones that have the effects when on summon, like Asophiel or Caspitel for example. And finally, we are playing AA Zeus. You all know what it does. We play two of them because we are so easily able to get into this. One thing to note though, turns where you activate both Vadis or Malfa, you cannot go into AA Zeus. Once again, we have an example side deck shown, but enough about that. Let's get into the replays. Let's play Exosister. Our first replay is up against Fluwandereese. I get to go first, but they will do the shifter here. I will Martha, they will Ash Blossom, which is perfectly fine because it actually doesn't destroy the Martha. I'm going to go for Pax here, grab Sophia, so I can go into Stella, special summon the Sophia to draw a card, set 2, go into MacLeod, go ahead and search out our Litania, set 1, pass. They get to go first, and Duality Cyclone. They will actually hit the Infinite, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to go for the Vadis here, bringing back the Elis and Malfa. Then the Duality here, searching for Robina. Alright, well, Robina is pretty much the best normal summon they got, but I'm going to Litania, banishing that Robina so I can then, on resolution, Exceed summon the Jabrin. Then they'll go ahead, normal summon the 2 count on resolution. I will Jabrin here. They do not have map in hand, so this is the end of their turn. And from here, I basically have the game already. I'm going to go ahead, Malva, since I only control Exceed monsters, get Elis from deck, go into Magnifica, go back into MacLeod, and this is already lethal, but I decided to BM just a little bit. I'm going to go Pax here, go ahead and special summon the Malfa, special Stella off of her effect, cast Patel, completely unnecessary by the way, as again, Magnifica can attack twice, so I'll go 28, 28, and like I said, didn't even need that extra monster. Our next replay is up against one of our Tier 0 Overlords, Tearlament, more specifically, Branded Tearlament. And unlike the last game, I am actually going second. So they will go first, they are going to activate the Paralino. I will Ash Blossom, which I probably should have held off because they have the Branded Fusion. They're going to go for the Lobelion. I'm going to go ahead and negate the Lobelion's effect, but the Sentient Element I really can't stop, so they're going to go ahead into the Kikalos. Kikalos' effect will activate here, adding themselves the Trap. Then they'll use Kikalos to go ahead and special summon the Myru from hand. Myru's effect will activate, sending Myru, so Myru's Graveyard effect will activate, going actually into Masquerade. Then they'll Paralino on Kikalos, Kikalos' effect, Rhino Heart effect, Rhino Fork activate, then the Trap card, and we're actually going to, from here, go into Shaylin. Shaylin's going to use his effect to go into a second Masquerade, and let me just say here, this is probably one of the worst Tearlament boards I have ever seen. Let's break it. We go here, we have everything we need already, so we're going to normal summon the Stella, we're going to use Elis' effect because we don't want them to destroy the Stella on board, then I'll use this effect stopping any graveyard effects, attack into it, and AA Zeus. So I'll use this effect to completely wipe the board. They have nothing but the 1 card in hand. I'm just going to Prosperity here, see what I can get off the top. And you know what? Vadis is basically as good as we wanted. So they'll set pass, they have the opening, and I have that Ash Blossom just for this. Owl Vedad is here just in case they do some other weirdness, which in hindsight I probably should have held off on because from here they are just going to end phase and let those shuffle back into the deck. Oh, another one. Well, I'm going to attack over it here, and funny enough, I could have gone into a second AA Zeus, but I opted not to, just to keep that in case I needed it. They will pass back to me, and now that it's my turn, I will go into Pax to grab the Malfa. Malfa's effect, because again, AA Zeus is an Exceeds monster. It's not if you control Exosister monsters, but Exceeds, and they see the writing on the wall and will concede. Our last replay is up against the other Overlord, Splight, though it's a pretty weird version, if I'm being honest. I'm going to go ahead, Prosperity, grab DD Crow, one of the best hand traps against this deck, and really I should be playing it at 3. Then I'll go for the Martha, summon the Elis, go into MacLeod, go for the Search, it will meet the Effect Veiler. I will banish that Effect Veiler just out of spite. but unfortunately the effect is negated, so I don't get to search. I'll go to Stella, meet an infant. That's perfectly fine. I could just set Latania and pass. They get to go and they get evenly matched. My god. I'm just gonna banish out of spite once more, but Stella's on board and they have to deal with it. They're gonna normal Plague Spreader, go into Spite Blue to grab Jet, Jet to grab Starter. I'm sure you've seen this enough times. Starter will go ahead and grab out the red. They'll actually go into Halka Fibras to grab another Plague Spreader and go into Djinn Buster. They'll activate the Plague Spreader and I'll use the Crow. I get to go first. I'm not even going to use Sophia's effect. I don't want them to even try and negate it. They will go for Shooting Riser before I go into battle. I will Ash it. They will negate this of all things. And the Shooting Riser sending... Alchromancer. So this is an Adventure Engine, but because this other effect will banish that before they get to their turn, I'll detach for the Vadis and then go into Double Azus because we attacked, sending the rest of their field and set one past. They have the blue, but you cannot special summon blue by itself, so he will just concede. And that was the replays. If I'm being honest, the Tier Element and the Sprite players weren't that good. Though, neither am I, so whatever. But at the very least, I hope this showed you the potential of this deck. And I hope that this video is the first step for you to pick up these anti-meta Evangelists. With that said, let's get into how to beat them. Yes, if for whatever reason you want to defeat Exosister, I am contractually obligated to tell you how. First and foremost, Ash Blossom is the killer of this deck. If you can negate Malfa, you really hinder the deck's power by a lot. Malfa does so much for the deck, and it's no wonder the deck hasn't seen any play until now. And as always, our budget option of the day, Flying Sea. You can pick this up for literal pennies, and for the most part, there's really nothing we could do if you do this. At most, we could go into a Selene, but at that point, we're not going into Arxes anyways, so you're probably happy. Other important cards are big board-breaking cards. If we set 3 and you Lightning Storm them, it hurts so much. And since they are all spellcasters, Teekboo is just a motherfucker. Fuck this card. I hate it. Please God, get rid of it! And of course, any deck revolving around the types listed on Dimensional Barrier will have a hard time against this. But with that, that is the video. My next couple installments of the Let's Build are going to be focusing on Tier Element and Split specifically. So let me know which of these two you would like me to go into to figure out how to play, and more importantly for us, how to defeat them. But with that, like the video if you like, subscribe if you want to see more. I am Nopenguin, waifu deck extraordinaire, signing out.